What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Polar Opposites. Today is Thursday, February 6th, and I'm your host, JD Moonin. So today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. Something I was really getting into studying while I was in my last relationship. Now that I've had some time to heal and really kind of get clarity, which everybody should do that, by the way. And if you don't, you need to start practicing that. I don't ever suggest going from relationship to relationship. Heal your wounds, find out what you did wrong, find out where you need to change, and make those changes for yourself, so that way you can have a successful one. That's a little side snippet. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive in real quick. So what I want to talk about today, actually, before we do this, okay, I want to remind everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to hit the little bell and the thumbs up button, please. Because I'm going to start talking about the message I feel like I'm being called to talk about. For those of you who don't know anything about me, I'm the kind of partner that if I find out my partner has some kind of illness, I'm gonna read up on that illness until I've read everything I can with insight. Anyways, so when I found out that my ex had BPD, for those of you guys who don't know what BPD is, it's borderline personality disorder. It is one of the single hardest disorders to be in a relationship with. They are very narcissistic in ways, but they have narcissistic tendencies in a different way than a narcissist does. So for instance, somebody with BPD, they do their narcissistic stuff, in an attempt to protect the other person. It's very weird. It's a very weird understanding of the whole thing. So like a narcissist, believes that they're just better than you. And so that's where you guys stand. Whereas somebody with BPD, believes that they're not worthy of you. So it's a lot different. There's like this really serious, self-loathing issue that happens with BPD. It's very, very painful to watch when you're the partner. Just so you guys are aware. But so anyways, I went and I got this wonderful book, right after I found out that she had that. It's called, I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. For any of you guys who have not read that book, if you do have a partner that has BPD, or if you have, or somebody has bipolar, ADHD, that book is very educational. It will teach you a lot about how there is actually a correlation between ADHD and borderline personality disorder, which I thought was very interesting. Especially for for my generation, because we have so many cases of ADHD. I'm really interested to see what our actual numbers are for borderline personality disorder. Anyways, so I want to talk to you guys about how I navigated that relationship. Now, and I want to be very clear too. What's interestingly enough about this relationship was, even though it was abusive, and I did have, I went through the trauma bond. I had to break a trauma bond that was very difficult. I did it all on my own. I dealt with multiple psychoses during, just one big long one during 2022 up through beginning of 2023. And then we got to a point where we were just smooth sailing. Everything was just smooth for quite a while. And I was able to defuse situations. I was really able to kind of nip things in the bud, for lack of a better term, before they became a problem. And this comes from the fact that as you guys know, well, you guys probably don't know this. Anybody who's been watching me for an extended period of time knows that I just have an affinity for cards. Okay. Since I was a young kid, I used to play Magic the Gathering. I loved that game. I was doing Pro Tour qualifiers when I was a teenager. And I remember, as far as I can remember as a kid, I was always ruling the rummy table, at my family gatherings. It's at points where my grandfather would not play with me. He said I was cheating, and I assure you, I was not cheating. I'm just good at cards. I'm one of those guys that can count cards when I go play blackjack, stuff like that. It's just something about cards. I just get them. It's kind of like when I picked up the tarot. It's almost as though, it's interesting because when you read Socrates, Socrates in the Meno, he goes on to talk about how people don't learn, they remember. And I find that very interesting, because, have you ever had like a hobby or a skill that you're not really quite sure where it came from? You just picked up whatever it was that you were doing, and you could just do it. It's almost like different aspects of that hobby or whatever just came out without you even having to research anything. Things that somebody else would have had to go look up. You already knew. Well, what's interesting about that is that's happened to me with two things in my life, two major things. And it's happened with a couple of different things, but two specific things that I'm going to talk about in this episode. The first one was DJing. I remember when I picked up DJing for the first time, what I had done in about like a year and a half on the decks and where I had progressed to as a DJ. That takes other people like 10 years to do. The same thing happened when I started really reading tarot. I started reading tarot when I was young, like 15. I kind of like dabbled with it. I had some very interesting experiences in my younger years, my young adult years. A very interesting one that I had was when I was trying to practice astral projection at 15, and I fell through my bed. Okay, and it scared the ever-living shit out of me. My dad, I guess, he'd come in and he opened the door and they like shut it, and right when I heard it, I like, smacked back in my body. But I remember like vividly, I fell through the bed and I was like looking at the bottom of my bed and I was like, whoa, like what kind of a situation is this? It's like, I think that's the bottom of my bed. It was very interesting, to say the least. My first experience with, Nirvana or Shunyata. I think some people call it the void, but us over it, in Zen Buddhism, we call it nirvana. I have reached that state of mind, that state of consciousness twice in my life. The first time I'd reached that state of consciousness, I was 13, and I was on a church retreat in Panama Beach, Florida. And something very interesting happened to me while I was on the beach. I was out there and I was like, everybody's kind of having this quiet time. I'm an empath and for the longest time, I used to get like anxiety and I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't realize it wasn't my anxiety. It was somebody else's anxiety I was feeling. But I remember I was like sitting on the beach and I just got this urge to start crying. And it wasn't me. Like I wasn't, I didn't have anything I was crying about. But like, I felt this urge to start crying. Well, I remember like I closed my eyes and I came into this state of contentment that I had never felt before. Everything was amazing, but okay. It was like amazing, but mediocre at the same time. It's very weird. Bodhisattva says it the best, to explain it it's a injustice because the experience can never be explained. It's something that's why Buddhists are so heavy on, Buddhism can't be spoken or read about, in its full extent. To really understand it, you must experience it, because it is a state of consciousness. It is an experience in and of itself. One that's very life changing, by the way. And it's therapeutic, and it's, in my opinion, it's the first form of psychotherapy that there ever was. That's what Alan Watts said, and I completely agree with him. However, back to what I was saying, and then I started hearing these different voices, kind of going on around me. It's almost as though like somebody's like kind of like whispering off in the distance, while I was in the state, and I started to realize that I was hearing the people that were a little bit further down from me praying, like in their head. And I was like, whoa, and there's no way. I'm like 13 years old. And I'm like, I was a kid that was like, when I was 8, I was like thinking about Ebola. You know what I mean? My mom's like, what the hell? Like, what? Like, how do you even know what that is? Like, how do you even know how it kills people? At 8, it's astonishing. Which is, I mean, it's weird. But, then it went on to, at 16, I had my first vision. When I say vision, it's a premonition, but it's weird how mine work. Cause like I always had trouble remembering my dreams. But what was very interesting was throughout my life, I've had these incidences where before a major event happens, I have, it's like I fall asleep for a second and it's like a dream happens like in a split second. And then I see like these blips of what happens. And then I come back to, I mean, one time I was like, almost, I was about to fall into my dresser, like hit my head on my dresser. But so there's 2 notable ones that I'll bring up. The first one, I was 16 or 17 years old, and I was with my homegirl Sarah and her boyfriend, and I remember he had like this bag full of XOs, and I remember I told him to leave him at the apartment, because we weren't in Travis County. I was like where we're at right now, bro. You're not going to want to be carrying that around. Well, so he decides to take it with him anyway. So I'm like, whatever. Well, so we get to, this, at this time, it was like a field, right? Now there's like a CVS and all this shit here. But before it's just a big barren field. And then there was like a Citgo, at the end of the street. Well, so we're like going to that Citgo to go get a Dr. Pepper, and we're walking through this field. I remember I looked down and I specifically remember seeing an A&W root beer bottle. And then I looked to the right and I looked and I saw a cat, which I don't know where the cat came from. I just remember seeing this cat. And then I look up at the speed limit sign, and then it's like a beam of light kind of like hit the sign, and then it just whoosh. It's like I fell asleep kind of, it's like I was just in this dream state. And I remember like I saw the cops, like I saw multiple cop cars, and I saw like my homegirl was standing on the sidewalk, she was like crying or something, and then like he, like her boyfriend was getting cuffed, and they had like dumped this bag out on the hood. And then like I came back too, and I was like stopped, and my homegirl, she's backed the story up because this happened. This was a real event. And I grabbed her. I was like, dude. And she's like, what? I was like, we need to go back right now. And she's like, no, man, we're like almost there, dude. Like, let's just. And I said, no, you don't understand. We need to go back right now. And she was like, why? And I was like, because he's about to go to jail. And she was like, what? I said, I just saw it. And she goes, what do you mean you just saw it? I said, I just had this like dream or like this vision or something, and I saw him going to jail. And she was like, no, dude, no. And I'm like, no, dude. I was like, no, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, like, we need to go back. Well, so long story short, they were like, no, we're not going back, blah, blah, let's just go. We're almost there. I'm like, all right, dude, your funeral, whatever. So like right when we get across the street, dude, here comes a cop. They come right up the street, pew, just lit us up for no reason. And man, I shit you not, like I remember they get out of the car and they just come up and they're like, oh, what's this? And they just grabbed this like a little Crown Royal bag out of his, out of his hand. They just grabbed it and they just dumped it on, the hood of the car. And they just start going through it. Of course, there's no warrant or anything, so I don't know how it's going to stand up in court, but so like they're doing all that, and then they like pull out this vitamin bottle, and I remember they undo it. They pour it out in the car, and then he reaches down, and there's like this cotton thing, and then he looks down, he's like, oh, what is this? And he dumps these out, and there's like 40 tabs, dude. I was like, ooh, I was like, oh shit, here we go. And I remember they were just like, they brought the test kit, tested positive for, MDMA, and then they just took his ass to jail. I remember I packed my shit that night. I was gone. I was out, but I looked at Sarah and I was like, next time when I say we need to go back, we need to go back. And she was like, I agree. And that was the first time. And And that was very shocking because I was very young. I didn't really know what was going on, and it scared, quite frankly, it scared the hell out of me. Because like I was going through a period of my life where like my foundation of life was already kind of being eroded, because I grew up in the church. I mean, I was teaching when I was a teenager, I was teaching backyard Bible studies, at like 13 years old. Like I mean, I've read the Bible through and through. I mean, I was like a very devout Christian, and I mean, you can only imagine what my mom must have thought when she found out, I was no longer a Christian, I actually, do not like religion. But so that leads me down to the next time I had this. I think I was about 25, 26, something like that. No, I was 28 actually. A very, very close friend of mine was murdered, and I loved her to death, man. She had helped me through my divorce. She was just a very good friend of mine. She was with my brother at the time. Well, they were together, but then they split up, and my brother is with his now wife, and she was with this other guy. Well, I remember I can't remember if I was at my house or if I was ever at their house when I saw it. But I remember I was sitting there, and next thing I know, I just kind of like, like I felt like I passed out for a second, and I saw this body, and she was in, I remember seeing her hoodie. I mean, this hoodie was very distinct because Terry always wore it. And I saw her hoodie, and I saw this body just floating down the river, and I popped back to, and I was like, I gotta talk to Terry. And I knew that that night she was going to be over at my brother's. She was coming in town to pick up a couple things. And I rolled over there, and it was really devastating for me because the last conversation I had with her was like me, like yelling at her, basically, telling her like, why are you letting these men take advantage of you? I said, this man is going to kill you. And she looks at me and she goes, I know. And that really affected me in a way, because I remember she was crying and she just looked at me and said, I know. Like there was no other choice, and there was, and that was what was so crazy. And then the next thing I know, I think it was like a week later, they found her floating face down in a river. Anyways, that one really fucked me up. That's actually when I that happened right before I got diagnosed with bipolar. And I mean, I just had a mental breakdown after that because she was murdered, and then my great grandfather died. We just put my dog down. I mean, it was a nightmare, man. Who would have thought that the trials and tribulations I went through over the last 5 years would have been worse? But they were. Somehow they managed to get worse. Anyway, so all that said, like, I just kind of wanted to give you guys like a backstory on, where I am at in my mind. I'm talking about some things that I've kind of kept very close to my chest. I haven't really talked about this stuff much because, I know a lot of people, they look at this stuff and they're like, whatever. But I'm here to tell you that this stuff is very real. There are things about energy that we don't fully understand. It goes right along with the philosophy that I've worked on building over my entire life. I, for the longest time, have had a problem with religion because viewing God as like this tyrant that sits up there and is a puppet master, that's only half the reality, right? Like God's the tyrant and the benevolent, angel. And that's what people don't understand. So, because God is everything, and in order to understand God, you must first understand consciousness. That's like you have science today. They've been trying to prove that consciousness, is created by brain. However, I've done a lot of, I've done a lot of indoor growing of plants, and notably, the one thing that they all do is they all grow towards the light, every one of them. And so, interestingly enough, they sleep too. I mean, so I tried to, I looked at a buddy of mine one time and I told him, I said, so if a brain creates consciousness, then why does a plant grow towards the light? And he just kind of looked at me stumped, and I was like, yeah, it's like a fundamental thought process of that the brain doesn't create consciousness. It leads me back to my I've got my own ideas on this stuff, and some people might find it outlandish, but it just makes sense to me. This is kind of where I stand. I believe that the brain is a translation device. It's translating to our consciousness the physical world. I believe that the body itself and the subconscious is the first ever AI, artificial intelligence. And the reason why I say this is because we have two different consciousness, and we do. Okay. We have the waking consciousness, which is the observing consciousness, which is that's where our ego comes from, essentially. And then we have the machine consciousness, the automated whatever, okay? Everything that's like your hair growing, you breathing, you needing to use the bathroom, eating, all that's automated. Okay. Like our body just kind of knows how to do that, and it just takes care of that stuff. And we don't really have to worry about it, and we can just kind of go around, giving ourselves the illusion that we're doing this, that, and the other thing. And so I'm one of those people that understands that, like you wanted to come into this life. Okay. Like I'm one of those guys that thinks that, whenever your parents got together and they shagged, right? Like you were the energy that made your father want your mom. You were the dirty gleam in your father's eye, right? You know what I mean? Like that was you. and that's what's so interesting about it. People go, oh, you're incalculably lucky to be alive. No, you're not. No, you're not. You came in precisely on time, right when you were supposed to come in. And that's because you chose to be here, and that's what's so interesting about it. I've been really, this is stuff I've really went over in my head for a number of years. I spent my entire young adulthood trying to understand, why am I here? What's the purpose? But yet, what's odd about this is me having these questions is ever since I was young, I felt like I was meant for a lot more than what I was doing. I felt like I was here for a reason. I couldn't understand why. Now I know. It took me a long time, but that's what happens whenever you, I guess whenever you find spirituality and you embark on your path. When you wake up and you realize, oh hey, I'm here to deliver a message. I'm here to change the world. In whatever way that's going to be, So for me, one of the things I really want to touch base on is I started to work with, I don't want to say work with, when I was with my ex, this is really where I want to go with this episode, is I want to talk about my use of the tarot, okay, to navigate my ex's BPD. Okay. And so I'm planning on expanding on this issue, or on this method, because if it works for one disorder, I really think it can work for multiple. So I was able to get our relationship very stable for, like 2 years, and it was all because of the way I reacted. And see, me having bipolar, I had to be proactive, because when you have bipolar, you're already reactive. And what I mean by this is you're already somebody who, somebody comes at you a weird way, you like fly off the handle, and you're like, and then you have to catch yourself and you're like, I'm sorry, I need to walk away for a minute. And that's like something you do when you have bipolar, especially bipolar 1. Because you can very easily just fly off the handle at somebody for the smallest thing, and then you're like, oh man, why did I just do that? Of course you already know why you did it, so there's just no reason in being upset with yourself about it. But when it comes to borderline personality disorder, it's a bit different. When they blow up on somebody, I mean, it's the end of the fucking world, and you're gonna get broken up with, blocked, and I mean, cussed. I mean, everything under the sun. Okay, and that had happened to me multiple times, and I could not understand why. Because I wasn't. Nothing I did was this breakup worthy. Reason. I mean, it was very much everything was over the top. It was always it was always my fault. Or I wasn't doing this or that right. It's very. Anyways, I mean that was in a gist. That was what I was going through. And the delusions, okay, like the delusions are out of this world. They make up stuff in their head and they believe it. And it's because they disassociate. Okay, disassociation is very unhealthy. It's almost as though like you have this whole time period with this person, this individual, and they just literally just that whole time period's gone. It's like it doesn't even exist. They don't even remember it, and that's wild to me, I mean, because I don't have that luxury. I'm the guy who like when I used to get drunk, I never could pull the whole, oh, I'm sorry, I was drunk and I fell and slipped into, that female over there. No, I was never that guy. I was the guy that was like, I'm going to go home because I'm a little tipsy, and then I remembered everything. Even if I was like passed out somewhere, I remembered everything, So like, I just like the whole cheating thing. I was like, that was just out of the question because I mean, I saw the way it made everybody else feel. I was like, fuck that. I'm not trying to feel like that. That does not look fun. And then the suspicion on top of it's just out of this world. But so, anyways, so what I started doing was, when it came to my ex, I started really utilizing the tarot cards to navigate her emotional state and her energetic state. And what's interesting about that is if you can kind of get the energy of somebody's mind, your partner's mind, you can then navigate situations that are going to come up. For those of you who don't know, tarot is very, very accurate at predicting the future. Now that's not to say that whatever events that you're predicting won't change and there will be a different outcome, because they absolutely will. If you are looking at a set of cards and there's an outcome that you want to happen, you need to make sure that you stay on the path that's lined out for you in those tarot cards. Because I mean, the cards will tell you kind of the direction in which you need to go, especially once you start to learn, how to read them properly. Now, you can read it in the divinatory stance. I actually very rarely read it, in the divinatory stance. I've always read it specifically. And there are specific meanings to every card, by the way. It's very specific. And I've found with those specifics that I have been able to, get accurate understandings of somebody's mood, somebody's emotions, whatever, and how they're going to fluctuate that day. And by doing this, I was able to really, you can say in a manner of speaking, I was trying to treat my own girlfriend. I was trying to heal her, essentially. And I will say this, from the time that her and I got together until where she's at now, there was an enormous amount of growth. I saw her change in so many good ways. And so I believe that this method works. And I think it's something that, I feel very passionate to, passionate about doing more research into it. I mean, I would really, really, really like to get with somebody who has the disorder that would like to work with me on that. Because I really, really, really think that this could, I mean, it really could change the way that we deal with mental illness. Um, because I just really think that we need to get away from medications. Uh, I understand that there are some physical, mental problems that, you have to have medication. I have one. ADHD, I feel like there's only one thing that works. Um, you know, and I've done a lot of things, and I wish meditation worked. It just doesn't. But when it comes to things like personality disorders, I mean, there is no medication for that. Arguably, bipolar is the same way. I mean, from my experience, I mean, what does bipolar medication do? It makes somebody suicidal, 9 times out of 10. It makes them dull. It just shuts down their third eye, and they're just a robot. And so I really personally do not think that. I just don't think that medications are a good way to go. When we look at SSRIs alone, I mean, you're talking about an SSRI. On the pill bottle, it states, we're unaware of how this affects the brain, but we know it can help. Any fucking pill bottle that says that, or any description of a medication that's on their website that says that, should not be FDA approved. Okay? I mean, how is that FDA approved? Oh, we don't know what it's doing to your brain, but we know it can help. It's like, what? That's like putting heroin out there and being like, oh wait, we did that. That's right. And going, oh, well, we know it's slightly addictive, but we think it's okay for your back pain. And then we have the huge, the worst opiate pandemic, or epidemic in our country's history, because of that. So anyways, back to what I was saying, and I think that utilizing this method that I was doing. So one of the things I was able to do one time was, let me give you an example. There was a time where I knew there was a specific part of her that I had to break. And it wasn't like something I wanted to see her in pain or emotional pain or anything like that. It had nothing to do with that. What it had to do with was she had to learn that she was in the wrong and admit it. And for somebody with BPD, you have to understand that is earth-shattering, okay? Because their ego, they have this fragile sense of self. They have so much shame that admitting when they're wrong is so painful. But I personally believe that this was one of the ways I was able to help get her on the track to really healing herself, to really, really helping heal herself. I remember she was like doing this thing, going, packing all of her stuff and getting ready to leave. And we were doing this, we were going back and forth. And I remember I just walked away. And she got so mad and she's like, let's throw this fit, blah, blah. And I just looked at her and I was like, I love you. I don't want you to go. I'll see you later. If that's what you want to do. And I remember I just kept basically just saying that, just staying very calm. And I mean, she was saying anything she could to try and make me mad, make me scream and all this. And I just would not react to it. And it was because earlier that morning, before she even got out of bed, I knew this fight was coming. And so I'd already went inside and got an understanding of how I had to deal with this fight. Because you can look at, you can even look into these fights or a fight with the tarot deck. You can go into more depth and understand kind of like what's the facets of the fight. Why are we going to fight, about this? And when it comes to BPD, very rarely, if ever, will you have a fight that makes any sense at all. Okay. It's basically, it's always 90% of the time, it's these little things that are so exacerbated out of this realm that you just looking at it and you're like, what? But that's just BPD. Their emotions are so overpowering. Okay. It makes me very sad because I don't think that people with BPD are bad people. I really don't. Now, narcissists, that's a different story. But people with BPD, they're a product of narcissism. And it really saddens me when I hear, and I've heard from, medical professionals say, oh, they can't stand people with BPD. They won't work with them. And it makes me sad when I hear that, coming from a psychiatrist or something like that. Not that I think a psychiatrist should be working on anybody anyways. But, it just makes me very sad to know that there is a case that is deemed too much and they won't deal with it. So that's why I want to work on what I'm working on now. I want to find or create this alternative means of treatment, and I think that we're on the right track. Anyway, so I'm gonna I'll release more episodes about this, about using tarot cards to navigate a borderline personality relationship. And I can only assume that if it works for BPD, it must work for other disorders. At first, it might seem very daunting, okay, if any of you guys do decide to do this. Keep in mind, it might seem very daunting, but you have to understand that as time goes on and you're reading more, okay, and you're reading more and you understand more. But of course, you got to get set on the right track to reading, especially when it comes to this, because I've got a method to this. And so it's going to be very much specific, because that's what you want. You want specifics. So, because you never know what somebody, when you're with somebody who's mental illness, you never know what kind of crazy shit they're going to do. Trust me. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. But so, totally having a brain fart. I fucking hate that, dude. Anyways, so I'll continue on with this, in some other episodes where I'll go into a little bit more depth into it. I'm also writing up, different methods and techniques that I use to do this, because I really think that we need to expand on this. And I think that, I think the world kind of, downplays spirituality and the healing capabilities of the body. People need to remember, man, the body is really, it's a perfect machine. It's a machine that basically doesn't stop running. What I mean by this is even when we die, the machine is still going. It's already reproduced. Okay. It's one of God's most amazing creations. It just depends on how you look at that, right? The Taoists believe that everything grows from God, that's kind of where I'm at. But so, yeah. So, and I'm going to keep this kind of short because I just don't want this thing to be a full hour. I would like this to reach as many people as we can get. But, just keep an open mind as we continue talking about, this study, because I really, really want to emphasize on this study, because what it did in my relationship and the stability that I was able to achieve. And people sit there, I know somebody's going to sit there and go, well, Judy, what happened? Obviously you guys aren't together now. So what stability? How stable was it really? Well, the reason why we're not together now, the reason why the stability fell apart was because I actually stopped reading. So I stopped reading for like half a year. And after I stopped reading, pretty much our relationship fell apart. So I just had so much energy drained out of me that I just shut down. Quite frankly, I just shut down. I wasn't good for anybody at that time. Now I'm feeling great. I had to heal. I'm one of those people that likes to get over my exes. I don't like to, cover them up with somebody else. Not only that, but it's not fair for whoever your partner is going to be next. Nobody wants to be with somebody who's still hung up on somebody else. Nobody does. I did that when I was young once or twice, and it's just, this shit's for the birds. I'm at that point in my life now where, I want to meet my person and settle down. and, you know, build an empire together. Something that will last the test of time, that will touch many lives, and will be generational wealth for, you know, family members to come. Shit like that, you know, something that gives back to the community and all that good stuff. You know, I mean, that's where I'm at in my life. Anyways, I'm gonna quit rambling here. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, like and subscribe. If you would like to help support the channel, if you'd like to help support me and the content I create, you're more than welcome to use the PayPal link that's in the, you know, at the top of my my YouTube channel there. It's also in the description of the video. Also, you can use the Cash App link as well. And I will post the link to the book as soon as I'm finished. So I'm gonna it's gonna be self-published as well. So I mean, I'm going completely back into business for myself. So I miss it. You know, I miss working for myself. Anyways, thank you guys so much for you know, watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video to others if you think that somebody could use the words. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful day, and I love you all. Thanks for watching. JD out.